The two terror groups operating in Gaza are both backed by Iran, and they both seek the destruction of Israel. They have different and sometimes conflicting agendas, though. CBN's Julie Stahl reports on the differences between Hamas and Islamic Jihad and the threats that they pose to Israel.
Hamas formed in 1987 and has held political power over the Gaza Strip since it seized power in a violent coup from Fatah in 2007.
Each one of them is having a totally different view about how to run the sacred fight against Israel and how to bring in salvation for the Palestinians.
Professor Uzi Rabi of Tel Aviv University sees Hamas having a more political long-term priority, which is why Hamas stayed out of the fighting.
He would like to have a foothold in Judea and Samaria, and in due time actually to replace Abu Mazen, the old leader of Fatah movement, and they would like to turn Hamas into the unquestionable leader of Palestine. They are also having a kind of an influence in East Jerusalem.
Hamas also wants to be seen as protector of the Al-Aqsa Mosque on the Temple Mount. While both Hamas and Islamic Jihad get support from Iran, the latter is much more connected to the regime and focused more on violence than politics.
This is, by the way, a very, very extremist organization. They don't have whatsoever agenda in the sense of running people, in the sense of conducting the daily life of a society. They are a very, very extremist group, which was founded in 1981, which means actually more than 40 years ago. They are ultimate proxies of Iran.
Rabi says the 1979 Islamic Revolution that brought the Ayatollah and mullahs to power in Iran has had lasting influence on Islamic Jihad.
For Iran, this is actually kind of a win-win because they're going to have a proxy next to Israel, sitting side by side to Israel. In a way, I would say act in accordance with what Iran's diktats are.
According to Rabi, Israel and some Arab states in the region are concerned about Iran activating its proxies.
They are trying actually to just build up sort of a thick belt around Israel, including Judea and Samaria, Gaza, Jerusalem, Lebanon, with the hope of fanning the flame between Israelis and Arabs in Israel proper.
Rabi sees Israel trying to drive a wedge between Hamas and Islamic Jihad, and Hamas realizes it could have lost money had it entered the recent battle against Israel.
Many work permits for more than 17,000 Palestinians. This is kind of a game changer when it comes to the Gazan economy. Hamas got actually new rights when it comes to the fishery. Hamas gets money from Qatar. This is, for the time being, very, very comfortable for Hamas.
He adds that while this strategy works for now on a tactical level, in the long run, Israel will have to deal with Hamas, which is building forces to the north in Lebanon.
So one way or the other, we have actually to prepare ourselves for something bigger when it comes to Iran and its proxies.
That means the Middle East as a whole has big decisions to make as it heads further into the 21st century.
There is an ongoing cooperation between so many Arab states and Israel. This is almost a miracle after the Abraham Accords. On the other hand, there are some challenges coming from these guys in the Middle East. And Iran and its allies are trying actually to install instability in order to make Iran much more hegemonic than it is.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, for more on this story, CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell joins us from Jerusalem. So, Chris, Hamas and Islamic Jihad are both proxies of Iran. How does that fit? It seems like they're trying either a pincer movement or they're sowing confusion in their own proxies.
Yeah, well, right now, I think what's happening, Gordon, is that recently we interviewed Ambassador Ron Dermer. He's Israel's strategic affairs minister. Now, he described what's happening with Hamas, Islamic Jihad, but also all of Iran's proxies, that they're trying to tie a noose around Israel. So geographically, you have Hamas and Islamic Jihad in Israel's south. On the north, you have Hezbollah far more powerful than either Hamas and Islamic Jihad. They have maybe, I've heard, as many as 200,000 missiles and rockets, some of them precision-guided. So you have Iranian militias also in Syria and Iraq, and you have the Houthis in Yemen. They have ballistic missiles that can reach all of Israel. So these are all part of that noose that Iran is trying to surround Israel with, and they can be unleashed in one of two scenarios. First of all, Iran can activate that at any time, but probably more importantly, they serve as a deterrent to prevent Israel from attacking Iran's nuclear program. So right now, Israel is literally preparing for a multi-front war. Just a few days ago, they completed a military exercise called Firm Hand to deal with just a scenario on a multi-front war situation here in the Middle East.
Well, talk about their ultimate goal. It seems to be fairly obvious, the destruction of Israel. But what do you think their ultimate goal is for the region?
Well, they want to have, first of all, they want to have this arc right now all the way from Tehran to the Mediterranean, and they want to control, they want to have hegemony over the Middle East. They want to really put submission over some of the Sunni Arab nations. That would be Saudi Arabia, the Gulf states, even Egypt. So they want to be dominant over the region. You know, we talked to an Iranian-born expert many years ago, Gordon, and he said what their goal is first is to destroy the little Satan, which is Israel, and the great Satan, which is America. Now, what they mean by the little Satan is Judaism. So they want to destroy Judaism, and then they want to destroy Christianity, and that would be represented by the United States. So ultimately, their goal is not only the Middle East, they really want to control the world. You know, theologically, they want to foment, you know, this sort of apocalyptic scenario to return the 12th Imam. Theologically, that's what they have in mind. This is an apocalyptic Islam that they're preparing for.
All right. Well, tell us about the recent war of words between Iran's Khamenei and Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Well, Khamenei warned that the West can't stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, just like it hasn't stopped any of their nuclear progress so far. And he added, you know, he said on the basis of Islamic ideals, they really don't want a nuclear weapon. But that doesn't seem to be a little bit incredulous that people would believe that. But as he has for years, Netanyahu has reiterated that Israel will do whatever it takes to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. And that is reiterated by not only Netanyahu, but the IDF, and really across the political spectrum right now, Israelis are united to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon.
Well, I'm hearing reports that the Biden administration is still trying to negotiate with them, and they're trying to resurrect the Obama deal with the Iranian regime. How is Israel responding to those efforts?
Well, it seems incredulous that the U.S. is still trying to do this nuclear deal. Prime Minister Netanyahu said very clearly the other day that Israel won't be bound by any agreement between the U.S. and Iran. He made that clear in recent talks with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. The question is right now is how substantial are these talks? They're apparently being mediated by Oman between the U.S. and the U.S. and Iran. Netanyahu says, and he said it just yesterday, that they can live with what he calls a mini deal. But there's concern that these talks are more substantial than that, what the Biden administration is saying. Just the other day, Haaretz, you know, one of the main newspapers over here, reported that the U.S. will avoid calling any talks with Iran a, quote, agreement. Now, what that does, Gordon, is that would prevent the administration from taking any, quote, agreement to Congress for approval, so bypassing Capitol Hill. Now, the White House denies that, but it's still concerning for Israel that the U.S. is still trying to get some sort of understanding with Iran over its nuclear program. On the other hand, and this is something I just learned just a few hours ago, Gordon, some Israelis believe that if the U.S. would support Israel publicly to strike Iran's nuclear program, that would have a global impact, and that would have a deterrence on Russia and also China in regards to Taiwan. And that message, not necessarily government officials, but some former IDF officials recently communicated that to representatives on Capitol Hill. Whether or not the U.S. and the Biden administration, the White House, is going to go for that remains to be seen. But that could be one way to really spread the U.S. deterrence, which has been weakened here in the Middle East. I mean, not many people here in the region are really trusting the U.S. words right now.
Well, I join with their lack of trust. It seems on some of the recent deals, that fishing deal that was mentioned in the piece, the U.S. seems to be against the Israeli interest in forcing them into bad bargains. You know, the Lebanon deal, some of these things, it really makes no sense that they would force Israel to sign those agreements and hold over Israel's head the ongoing support of the United States of America. I think it's quite clear in terms of Iran, they're going to bypass Israel. If they're willing to bypass Congress, they're absolutely willing to bypass Israel. Well, Chris, thanks for the insight. And once again, for you watching, please pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Please pray that we would stand with her. For us at CBN, my father made a pledge a long time ago, and I absolutely have made the same pledge. No matter what, we stand with Israel.